The outer edges of the solar system do not scream. They do not shatter. They simply cease to be. Out in the frozen erasure of the Oort Cloud, trillions of icy remnants are suddenly tugged by an invisible, absolute hand. This is not a collision. It is a spatial correction. A point of infinite density, no larger than a grain of sand yet weighing more than 10,000 Earths, slices through the vacuum. The first casualty is the light itself. Around the edges of this roaming void, the starlight bends, twists, and shears into glowing arcs, creating a distorted lens that ripples across the darkness like a pebble dropped into a pool of ink. The silence is total, yet the destruction is foundational. Icy planetoids the size of mountains are not merely crushed, they are spaghettified, stretched into thin ribbons of subatomic dust that spiral toward the event horizon. The kinetic energy released by this consumption creates a faint, ghostly glow of X-rays that flicker for a microsecond before being swallowed. The Oort Cloud, the protective shell of our celestial home, is being dismantled one frozen rock at a time. The gravitational tide reaches out, a silent reaper moving at 70 kilometers per second, drawing a line toward the center of our world. This is the end. But to understand why, we must rewind to the beginning. In the vast, clockwork precision of our solar system, stability is the only currency that matters. For 4,500 million years, the planets have danced in a delicate, gravitational waltz. This stability is governed by the Sun, a massive anchor that holds 99.8% of the entire system's mass. Every orbit, every rotation, and every seasonal tilt is a result of this precise balance between centrifugal force and solar pull. We live in a kingdom of order, where the Earth follows a predictable path at 107,000 kilometers per hour. We rely on the fact that the space between the stars is empty, a vacuum that offers no resistance and no surprises. But this emptiness is an illusion. The galaxy is teeming with rogue actors, remnants of dead stars that have collapsed under their own weight. These are black holes, objects so dense that the laws of physics as we know them begin to tear at the seams. Normally, they dwell in the dark heart of the Milky Way or remain locked in distant binary systems. But gravity is a long-range force, and the universe is a shooting gallery. If a stellar mass black hole, or even a smaller primordial one, were to veer off its galactic trajectory and enter our local neighborhood, the very fabric of our reality would begin to unravel long before the object ever touched a single planet. The first subtle signs of the intruder manifest in the delicate mathematics of the outer planets. Neptune, a gas giant of deep azure, feels the tug first. Its orbit, once a perfect circle, begins to elongate. The gravitational influence of a black hole is not a localized strike, it is a field that permeates every cubic meter of space. As the void crosses the threshold of the Kuiper belt, the orbital resonance of the outer system is shattered. Neptune is pulled away from its sunbound path, drifting millions of kilometers off course. This shift is minute at first, a mere fraction of a degree, but in the scale of celestial mechanics, it is a catastrophe. The tug of the black hole competes with the pull of the Sun, creating a gravitational tug-of-war that Neptune cannot win. The planet's internal heat, generated by its core, begins to spike as tidal forces knead its liquid interior like dough. The atmosphere, a swirling mass of hydrogen and helium, begins to vibrate. Giant storms, larger than the Earth, are ripped apart by the shear forces. The planet does not stay in one piece for long. As it crosses the Roche limit of the approaching black hole, the structural integrity of the gas giant fails. It is not an explosion, it is a systematic deconstruction. The outer layers are peeled away in layers of freezing gas, forming a glowing accretion disk that spirals into the dark center of the intruder. The black hole continues its silent march inward, now draped in a shroud of captured matter that glows with a lethal, violet ionization. It approaches Uranus. The tilted giant, already an anomaly of the solar system, is yanked violently toward the visitor. The moons of Uranus, small worlds of ice and rock, are scattered like marbles on a glass floor. Some are flung out into the interstellar void, doomed to wander the darkness forever. Others are drawn into the black hole's maw, their icy crusts vaporizing into plumes of superheated plasma that light up the dark corners of the system. The sheer mass of the black hole, even if it is only a few times the mass of the Sun, is enough to override the Sun's authority. The solar system is no longer a single star system, it has become a chaotic, three-body nightmare. The orbits of the remaining planets, Saturn and Jupiter, begin to wobble. These giants, which have acted as the protectors of the inner system for eons, are now the very tools of our destruction. Their massive gravity, once a shield against comets, is now being redirected by the black hole, creating a cascading failure of orbital mechanics. As the void reaches the orbit of Saturn, the ring jewel of our system is subjected to a violence that defies description. The rings, composed of trillions of particles of water ice, are the first to react. They do not just dissipate, they are pulled into a singular, rotating stream of white light. The black hole's tidal forces are so intense that they create a differential in gravity across the planet's diameter. The side of Saturn facing the black hole is pulled with billions of tons more force than the far side. The planet begins to stretch, turning from an oblate spheroid into an elongated egg shape. The golden clouds of Saturn's atmosphere are whipped into a frenzy, with winds exceeding 3,000 kilometers per hour. Then, the planet's core, a dense ball of rock and metallic hydrogen, begins to fracture. The energy released by this structural failure is equivalent to 1 trillion resonance events. Saturn is torn into 1,000 fragments, which are then ground down into subatomic dust within the accretion disk of the black hole. The solar system is now an erasure of shattered worlds, and the intruder is only getting closer. Jupiter, the king of planets, is the next to face the void. The interaction between these two titans creates a spectacle of high-energy physics. Jupiter's massive magnetosphere, the largest structure in the solar system, is compressed and twisted by the black hole's presence. This creates a radiation environment so intense that it would strip the atmosphere from any nearby world in seconds. The Jovian moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, are caught in the crossfire. Europa's icy crust is shattered, and its hidden subsurface ocean is flash frozen and then vaporized into a cloud of steam that spans millions of kilometers. Jupiter itself does not go quietly. Its immense mass allows it to resist the black hole's pull for a few days longer than the smaller planets, but the result is inevitable. The gas giant is drawn into a terminal spiral. As it approaches the event horizon, the pressure within Jupiter's core reaches a breaking point. The metallic hydrogen, compressed beyond its limits, undergoes a phase transition that releases a burst of pure kinetic energy, lighting up the solar system with a brilliance that rivals the sun. Most turn away from the void. But here at Velastrix, we decode the math behind the chaos. Join the archive by subscribing now. The black hole is now within the inner solar system, and the Earth is no longer a haven. Long before the object reaches our orbit, the gravitational distortion begins to affect our home. The first sign is the tide. Gravity is a gradient, and as the black hole approaches, the difference in pull between the side of the Earth facing the object and the side facing away becomes extreme. The oceans do not simply rise and fall, they are pulled into a singular, mountain-sized bulge of water that sweeps across the continents. This is not a wave, it is a permanent displacement of the hydrosphere. Coastal cities are not flooded, they are erased. New York, London, Tokyo, and Sydney are submerged under kilometers of seawater in a matter of minutes. But the water is only the beginning. The Earth's crust, a thin layer of rock floating on a mantle of molten magma, begins to flex. The stress of the black hole's tidal pull causes the tectonic plates to grind against one another with unprecedented fury. Every fault line on the planet ruptures simultaneously. The ring of fire ignites as hundreds of volcanoes erupt, spewing billions of tons of ash and sulfur into the atmosphere. The sky turns from blue to a bruised, sickly violet as the sun's light is filtered through the thickening haze of volcanic debris and ionized gas. As the black hole moves within 10 million kilometers of Earth, the very air begins to betray us. The atmosphere is a fluid, and it reacts to gravity just as the oceans do. The air is pulled toward the black hole, creating a localized vacuum on the far side of the planet and a crushing wall of pressure on the near side. The sound of the world ending is not a roar, it is a dissonant, low-frequency vibration that rattles the marrow in human bones. The vibration is the sound of the Earth's core being tugged out of alignment. The magnetic field, our only shield against solar radiation, begins to flicker and fail. High-energy particles from the sun and the black hole's accretion disk pour into the atmosphere, creating auroras that cover the entire sky in shimmering, lethal curtains of green and red light. The air molecules themselves are stripped of their electrons, creating a planet-wide layer of superheated plasma. The temperature on the surface begins to climb, not by degrees, but by hundreds of units. The concrete of our cities does not just crack, it undergoes a chemical breakdown, turning back into the dust from which it was made. Glass melts and flows like water through the streets of abandoned metropolises. Then comes the final act of spaghettification. As the Earth crosses the point of no return, the gravitational gradient becomes so steep that the feet of a person standing on the surface would be pulled toward the black hole with significantly more force than their head. This force is not just felt by biological organisms, it is felt by the atoms themselves. The Earth is stretched into a long, thin filament of matter. The mountains are pulled flat, the core is drawn out into a needle, and the entire planet is converted into a stream of particles that spiral into the dark, silent center of the intruder. There is no explosion, no flash of light to mark our passing. There is only the sudden, absolute cessation of existence. The Earth, with all its history, its beauty, and its life, is reduced to a set of data points on the surface of an event horizon. The information that was once a civilization is now encoded in the fluctuations of a void. The Sun, the once mighty ruler of this system, is now alone with the intruder. The interaction between a star and a black hole is a cosmic ballet of fire and shadow. The black hole begins to siphon the outer layers of the Sun, drawing away the hydrogen and helium in a brilliant, glowing bridge of fire. This is known as a tidal disruption event. The Sun is not swallowed whole, it is slowly unraveled. As its mass is stripped away, the Sun's internal pressure drops, causing its core to expand. The star turns into a bloated, distorted version of itself before eventually being torn apart into a massive accretion disk that will circle the black hole for millions of years. The solar system is gone. In its place is a cold, dark void, illuminated only by the faint, dying glow of the matter that was once our world. The silence returns to the vacuum, deeper and more permanent than before. The black hole continues its journey through the galaxy, leaving behind nothing but a ripple in the fabric of spacetime and the memory of a light that once was. We are reminded that we live on a fragile island of order in a universe that is fundamentally indifferent to our survival. The laws of physics are not a safety net, they are the very tools of our eventual erasure. To explore the impossible and visualize the unknown, subscribe to Velastrix.